1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We are on episode 63, and we got a packed show. We're probably going to go over on pretty much everything this time around because we've got 3 topics, 2 of which I know are going to probably take up a good chunk of discussion. We watched a movie, and you guys watched another movie.
Although we probably won't talk about it long, because I feel like we already discussed it.
Just a little bit. But the first movie we watched, The Man Who Would Be King, I absolutely loved that movie. That was a great watch.
From 75.
Yeah, and then last we've got a new segment to try out for segment 3.
We do?
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
it was my idea.
It was a debate thing.
It's been a week, alright?
Alright, so let's not waste any more time on that. So, do you want to start with one of your topics, or should I go ahead with mine?
Yeah, should we start with China?
Yeah, go with China. This is funny. So there's been a few developments with China in terms of video games this week. But
do you want to give a brief outline of the history and things of this?
Yeah. So China has had an interesting relationship with video games. If you go back far enough, the big thing, I remember there was a controversy that came around World of Warcraft 15 years ago with Chinese gold farmers. They just literally they'd make a decent income just farming gold. Actually, I think it was 20 years ago now. Then you get these big Chinese mega game companies like Tencent that own League of Legends, and I think even Pokemon Unite is owned by them.
I wouldn't be surprised.
But then, because it's China's a big push to try and, I guess, groom their youth into what they want them to be, they've done a ban on effeminate men in media and celebrities. They're doing a bunch of censorship in terms of games, you can't have gay characters, you can't have you could never have occult stuff. I remember in Rainbow Six Siege, they took out slot machines too because you couldn't have gambling in there. And there were certain levels you couldn't have Halloween decorations.
I mean, I'm happy with taking out slot machine games because, frankly, I think
it wasn't a game. It was a background. You were just in a casino in Rainbow Six.
Oh, and I thought you meant the loot box part of it.
No. That they were fine with that. But now, more recently, they've decided they're going to put a ban in. They put a ban in on kids playing video games and the amount of time they could do it, a light restriction. And then they most recently are now limiting it to the people under the age of 18 can only play video games for 1 hour 3 days a week. So it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And the actual statement I think from their government was they were calling video games opium of the mind or something like that, or they're again referencing back to when opium was kind of ravaging China in terms of addiction back in the 1800s.
As opposed to opium, which is opium of the mind.
Yeah, I was going to say that seems like I may be misquoting that, but they compared it to opium. And that, I guess, brings us to what you wanted to talk about, these bans.
Well, yeah, it's blown up, obviously, very recently because of these new restrictions on games. And I thought, hell, I'm going to have a look at some of the games that they've banned in the past. And I've come across a list. It's a Wikipedia list, so who the fuck knows if it's correct or not. But frankly, some of the stuff on there is...
Before you get into this, I just want to, speaking of bans in China, one of my absolute favorite things that China has ever banned is Winnie the Pooh. And they banned Winnie the Pooh because
hang on, let me guess. Because people were putting that leader on the fucking guys on Winnie the Pooh's face, and...
Well, there's a famous picture of Xi Jinping, the head of the Chinese Communist Party, the de facto leader of the country, walking next to Obama, and it looks just like the old picture of Winnie the Pooh walking next to Tigger. and of course, so they banned Winnie the Pooh because people were comparing him to Winnie the Pooh. And so now, as a result, I actually almost didn't remember his name because I always just call him Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
Anytime somebody gets pissed enough at a comparison like that they'll go and try to ban it and try to stop them, I'm calling you that from now on.
God, yeah, cancel culture.
Anyway, but go on.
It's a big thing at the moment. Anyway, yes, so fun little thing we were going to do. I'm going to read out a game that China has banned, and Kaiser has to guess the reason why it was banned.
This is going to be fun.
Now, there aren't a great deal of them on this list, and I'm only going to pick the ones that are actually interesting or that we actually know. But yeah, here we go. So, first game. It seems to be in alphabetical order, so you know what's coming first. Animal Crossing New Horizons is banned in China. Why is it banned?
I think it's because the characters are like chibies. Like,
Yeah, you think the...
I remember maybe if it's a more recent ban, that would be my guess, but maybe
April 2020.
oh, April 2020. Okay, maybe not then. Well, it got banned the moment it came out then, because that's when the game was released.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it was probably because there's occult stuff in it. Like I think there's like ghosts and things, and
Right, okay.
that's my guess. I actually there's a million different reasons I could think of why they did it, but that's gonna be my best guess.
I don't think you the reason is brilliant. At least the reason they give here. Okay. It was banned in the People's Republic of China since April 10th, 2020. The game was pulled from the store as players created and posted anti-government messages in-game with a custom pattern tool.
Okay. I could see that.
Rioting in Animal Crossing, would you believe it? There has been no official ban announcement. There's been no official announcement whether the ban was enforced by the government of the People's Republic of China or by the people who provided the game. However, the game is still on sale on the Chinese grey market.
Yeah, you can still
That's
get
a
through.
thing.
Yeah.
It's not quite as bad as the black market.
But I mean, yeah, you get that. It's not strictly illegal, but you could still buy it from non-official sources.
Okay. Game number 2. Moving on to B.
Okay.
Battlefield 4. Specifically 4.
What happened to Battlefield 4? I played that game, but it's so much like every other generic.
I've played up till...
Do you fight
I've
China
played
in
3,
that
but
game?
not 4. Do you what?
I don't know. Maybe you fight China in that game. Do you fight against communists?
I don't know. I haven't played Battlefield 4.
I have it on my bookshelf. I've beaten it. I don't remember anything about it.
Well, I mean, that's much of an impression on you.
I mean, most of these like Call of Duty, Battlefield style games, the storyline is so vacuous that it just goes in and out of your head.
So, what do you think the reason is?
I think in the game, you like fight communists. You might actually be fighting China or maybe a Chinese ally.
Battlefield 4 banned for discrediting China's national image, as well as threatening national security.
Yeah.
The Chinese ministry claims that the game shows a cultural invasion, as opposed to in 10 years' time when China will be doing a real-world invasion.
Man, you're giving them a lot more credit. I think they're...
I don't know, maybe they're going to invade Reddit or something, who knows.
They've been given, like, Taiwan eyes for, like, a few years now. So.
For a second there, hang on, time out. My mind went to... I thought you were making a very iffy statement about Taiwanese people for a second there.
No, I think Taiwan's awesome. Like,
yeah, no.
They make all the computer chips in the world, and they're the
thought you
last
said that-
bastion of, like, free Chinese people, essentially.
Yeah. Anyway, not important. Up to the letter C. And this is a game near and dear to my heart, which I'm surprised to see it on this list, but I'm not surprised that it's here. Like, I'm surprised because... I don't know. Command & Conquer Generals.
Oh.
I was literally talking to you this, like, 2 weeks ago. Completely unrelated.
I mean, I at risk of repeating myself, I honestly think it's probably the same thing. I believe you actually, fight against China in this. Or is this the one where Japan has super mechs? No, that's Red Alert. That's Red Alert. I'm thinking of Red Alert.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you probably have to fight against China, or they make China look bad or something like that in the game. Like, they're probably a faction.
So, Command & Conquer Generals, there are 3 factions. There's America, China, and basically the GLA, the Global Liberation Army, aka terrorists.
Yeah.
But here we go. Banned for smearing the image of China and the Chinese army. Although the game presents China as a protagonist and glorifies the People's Liberation Army, the China campaign has the player destroy questionable targets such as the Three Gorges Dam and the Hong Kong Convention and Exhibition Centre in order to snuff out an invading terrorist organisation.
Yeah.
They're even the protagonists and they're fucking shitting on their games.
Well, they probably don't. The Three Gorges Dam is probably a big one, because that was like this huge industrial project over there, and the CCP was like, oh, look at this great work of engineering that we've done, and they probably don't like you blowing it up in the campaign.
To flush out terrorists, though.
Yeah, but that's actually reminiscent of something the previous Chinese regime did during World War II. When Japan invaded, they actually flooded an entire valley and killed like hundreds of thousands of their own people just to slow down the Japanese. So they might not like that little reference to their history either. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, you mentioned Japan. I'm surprised Japan aren't pissed off because they're having China blowing up their exhibition centre.
Well, you said Hong Kong.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Hong Kong. Why did it say Japan? I swear it said Japan.
I said Japan.
I thought it said it in the text.
I was talking about how I thought that maybe because Japan looked good in it. But
right. F. Football Manager 2005. You can't say this one is about the army looking bad.
Yeah.
Or can you? It's just a pitch invasion at mid-time.
I don't know, I'm trying to think like what they could possibly...
about football. Football is not communist in Russian.
Hold on. Is Taiwan a country in that?
Is that your answer?
That's my answer. I think Taiwan's a country.
Banned for recognizing Taiwan.
Boom.
And Tibet.
Oh yeah.
As independent countries.
Yeah, and China considers them both provinces.
An edited version was later released globally.
Yeah.
Next one, a surprising one.
Taiwan's a country.
Considering how Taiwan #1.
Oh my god.
Considering how widespread this game is, I'm surprised. Fortnite. Why is that banned?
I imagine it probably has something to do with one of the skins. Because there's like 1.5 billion different skins in that game.
There are a lot of skins.
And they probably have one that's offensive to something the CCP likes.
They've also got a lot of brands associated with it, because they've got a lot of deals with, like, Star Wars, John Wick, all sorts.
I don't know. I'm going to say, yeah, they probably have some skin that the Chinese Communist Party doesn't like, or doesn't like seeing get, shot at.
Okay, so I agree with that statement, but that's not what it says here.
Okay.
The reason they banned it is because it contains blood, gore, and vulgar content. Fortnite contains blood, gore, and vulgar content.
It has none of those things in there.
Right?
I
There's literally none of them.
I've played it before. It's literally like the most cartoony of the cartoon violence.
Like, it's a kid's game. It's worldwide recognized as a kid's game.
Yeah, there's
like,
not...
What's next? Splatoon? For profanity? Like...
That's so weird to me, because I don't... Is PUBG banned? Because that game...
I can't see on this list.
It's the same genre, and that one actually does have, like, blood.
Blood and gore.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not gore.
Not gore, but you shoot somebody, like, and that's more realistic. That's so weird to me. Alright, next one.
Hearts of Iron.
Oh, this one's pretty, probably going to be pretty easy. Because in Hearts of Iron, I'm pretty sure you can play as other, like, global factions. It's not just based out of the European theater. I think you can play as... factions in Asia. Specifically, I think you can play as Japan conquering China. And I don't think they'd like that.
Okay, so you've fallen into the trap.
Oh god, what is it?
Banned because it depicted disputed territories such as Tibet and Taiwan as independent nations. It came back, baby!
God damn it.
What have they got against Tibet and
like,
Taiwan?
I think the general theme in this is you really get like 3 or 4 general reasons. They either make China look bad, they recognize disputed regions as independent countries.
They have anything to do with Tibet or Taiwan.
Or they have like depictions of things they don't think are proper, like blood, gore, gambling, the
Which
occult.
is true, because like every game out there these days has blood in some manner.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Knives Out?
Yeah, I hated that movie. I didn't hate it. It was just like,
Is it a movie?
Yeah, it's a movie.
Oh.
Amazon did a movie of it. Maybe there's a game for it too?
I guess. Do you want to give a reason for why it's banned?
God, if it's anything like the movie, just poor taste.
Banned because it... And word for word I'm going to say this. Banned because it overly revealing female characters. And because contains blood, gore, and vulgar content.
This may be a different game than because there's a movie called Knives Out, and it's sort of like a Agatha Christie murder mystery kind of.
Agatha Christie is not particularly revealing female characters. I hope not. Anyway, don't remember Poirot going into an orgy.
Oh my god! All right, how many more of these do we got? Because we're halfway.
I'm gonna have, let's say, 2 more.
Okay, 2 more. Let's hear them.
Okay, Paladins. It's that game that's a rip-off of Overwatch.
I'm gonna go back to, because this hasn't been right yet, but I'm gonna say it has something to do with the occult. Like, because I feel like there's gonna be like ghosts and zombies and shit in there.
A playable character was removed from the game, citing gore and his ability to resurrect upon death. So,
Boom.
Reaper from Overwatch. The game was later banned outright, citing overly revealing female characters, blood, gore, basically the blood, gore, and vulgar content they've got for a lot of these. Like, I'll skip past a lot of things.
Yeah.
And again, overly revealing female characters. I don't think they're like cartoon characters again. I mean,
Boobies.
okay, Widowmaker. She got that ass, but
Didn't they actually? Yeah, they censored one of
nerf
Tracer's poses in the U.S. because she was standing like with her back to the camera and like looking over her shoulder, and people over here got pissed because she had a nice ass, and they're like, "Oh, you're just doing this to appeal to men." It's like, yeah. So? She's
gay. Deal with it. Those men have just been blue-balled.
Yeah.
And
I think that's sexist. Both men and women can appreciate a nice ass.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, go on. Last game.
And the last one, which I'm sure you can probably work out why, Plague Inc. Evolved.
Yeah. So Plague is a game where you you craft a disease.
Yes, a virus.
And it can your goal is to kill off the whole world population with a disease. Yep. And you play as the disease, choosing traits, when to evolve and infect people and whatnot. I don't know. Is it because China literally played this game in real life?
Banned in China as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
There we go. Yeah.
Like, shit! We mustn't let people know that we've fucked up the world! Ban them all!
Oh my god.
Like, that's gonna help anything.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was my list.
God.
Oh, you
Those
did
were
pretty
good.
good.
Yeah. I got most of them right. I mean, they really only have like 4 strings to the bow when it comes to why
Yeah.
they ban things over there.
Also, I think a lot of those reasons weren't the legitimate reasons why they did them.
Oh yeah, there was probably other backroom reasons why they were doing that.
But it's Wikipedia, so, they can just cancel it and change it whenever they want.
Yeah, that's why there was a research project I had to do back in college, and the professor who was guiding it, one of his favorite things to say, like, just he hated Wikipedia. He's like, that's not a source. Don't cite it. You can use Wikipedia to find other sources sometimes because they'll cite books and things, but you should never use it as a primary source. 1, because it's constantly changing, and 2, because it's written by people who may or may not have any credentials whatsoever.
Yeah. just to on the page, there's, like I said, this big table with all the games China's banned, and immediately below it, no video games have ever been banned in Cuba.
What? I mean, did they even have the games in Cuba?
They were a little bit pissed off at Call of Duty Black Ops because you shoot Fidel Castro, but it was only a double, so they were fine with it.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh, that's funny.
like there's plenty of games out there that it says something about a country when they can't take any sort of like light criticism or mockery.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just going off a tangent. Denmark. EA Sports is the only game that was not released in Denmark because of a law prohibiting marketing for energy drinks. Good on Denmark, honestly.
Yeah, I think
Fuck EA Sports.
There's a few EA games that like the Dutch
EA
were banning.
Sports MMA.
Yeah, there was over the whole loot box thing. I think it was the Netherlands that called it gambling and then banned it.
And I totally agree. Honestly, I think I wouldn't be upset if all the loot box games just vanished.
Yeah, loot boxes need to burn in a fire.
Yeah.
Anyway,
moving on.
Yeah, okay, so slightly different topic. Although it kind of follows on from what we were just talking about. I was thinking about this over the course of the week. Just I think it was after we had watched that movie, the Man Who Would Be King, and it was something that occurred to me, like the changes in what people are calling for to be like centered or removed from movies. So, for instance, 50 years ago, like outright violence, like blood, gore, gratuitous nudity, and stuff like that. That was the kind of thing that you just didn't put in a movie.
Yeah.
Because it would be, it was considered like shocking for an audience or something like that, or just not something that you'd have there. But you could have people, smoking or drinking or talking about fairly heavy topics and stuff like that. But then fast forward to like the 90s, and it was extremely taboo in most mainstream movies to have people smoking or drinking or doing anything like that, but you could have as much violence and titties as you wanted. Like, that was fine. And you actually, around that time, got people calling for old movies to have cigarettes airbrushed out of people's hands and stuff like that, so they didn't show up in the movie. And that's what really bothered me, is that sort of revisionism.
Yeah, editing history to benefit.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, but it'll be great because now more people in a modern audience can enjoy it. And it's like, well, no.
People still enjoy it.
This is because I enjoy, history so much as a topic. Like, I love reading about it. I love watching documentaries. It's been a hobby of mine since I was old enough to read. So it really, really bothers me when people go back and try to take history out of context or modify it to meet some kind of modern sensibility. But one thing I was thinking of, and I remembered this line. There's a movie I love called "Thank You for Smoking,"
right?
And it's about a tobacco company lobbyist and some of the weird misadventures he has trying to play the game that you had to play back in that era of, trying to get people to smoke and to advertise, but also dealing with all like the health people and the activists and but think of the children.
I mean, to be fair, back then it was like, the dentist recommends this pack of cigarettes.
Yeah,
like, those were a thing.
That's how it used to be. Yeah, it was. That's how it was in the early '60s. It's like 9 out of 10 doctors smoke this brand, and
Marlboro.
Yeah, but there's a line in that movie where he's talking to a movie executive to talk about getting cigarettes back into the hands of people on screen. And the movie executive is talking to his assistant. He's like, this is, whatever. And he's looking to get cigarettes into the hands of somebody other than our usual Ravs. And the lobbyist goes, Ravs? And he's like, oh, Russians, Arabs, and villains. I thought about it. That really was a trope back in the 90s. Like, those were the only people that smoked on screen. Was the villains or like, sinister foreigners. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, well, I mean, they were the ones that typically smoked the cigars, but quite often they were the good guys smoking regular cigarettes. I mean, when was this is a lot more modern, but when did Cowboy Bebop come out?
Oh yeah, Cowboy Bebop, that was the 90s, but that was Japan. And yeah, but my point, and this is my point about changing taboos. We're now in the 2020s. And I feel like every TV show I'm watching, people are like smoking and drinking and doing drugs and whatever.
Yeah, I don't think you're allowed to, in England at least, have smoking.
Peaky Blinders.
Do they actually smoke?
They smoke constantly in that movie.
Yeah, they do, don't they? They got cigars.
Yeah. Cigars, cigarettes, everything.
When did they make that legal again then?
I don't know. But think about it. They're in an average episode, like they're tons of like substances. Like there's the whole thing with Arthur doing cocaine and
yeah, but drugs are different. I don't think they fall under the remit. Also,
but my
are
point,
the cigarettes lit?
Yes.
Are they?
Go back and watch any episode of Peaky Blinders and I guarantee you people will be smoking and they'll be drinking and they'll be doing drugs just constantly. But my point is, it went from being that we've kind of come full circle again, because in the 90s, none of that would make it on TV, not to like a general audience. And if it did, it'd be considered kind of gauche, or you'd have to have somebody, immediately coughing and dying in a ditch because they got lung cancer. But they've kind of come back around. Now, the things that you can't ever have on screen, for instance, you can never have on screen what's one of the ones now? Oh, like, you can never have a conflict between a man and a woman where the man comes out on top. They either have to draw or the woman has to come out on top. Yeah. Be it an intellectual conflict or a physical confrontation.
Yeah, it's a lot more social norms more than physical objects that you have to abide by, I think, more in this day and age.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have a diverse crew, you have to have different sexual orientations. You have to have someone who's maybe... I don't know the correct way of saying this. I apologize if I offend someone. You have to have a disabled person?
I don't
quite
know.
Often?
Yeah, disabled. I don't know. I can't keep up with all the words that you have to keep track of not to offend people, so I just don't bother anymore. Yeah. But, yeah, that's the other thing, too. It's very surface level. And you also end up with, like, a lot of big movies. You don't get a lot of, like, deep ideas. There isn't a lot of, substance to the plot. Like, if you boil down what's actually happening, it's usually a very simplistic storyline. But there's a lot of action and, flashy, shiny stuff going on to keep you occupied. A lot of... I'm trying to think of a good modern example of this, because I'm just thinking of like a lot of the Marvel movies.
I was thinking Transformers.
The new ones? Yeah.
There's very little story to it, but they do a lot of cool robot scenes, which is what people go to see anyway.
Yeah.
Transformers.
They smash stuff up and blow it up. I
But it's
did.
never going to be the same as the original for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that had a decent story.
So I was thinking, like, using this as a premise. This is like with movies and modern stuff, how it's just changed over the course of like 40 years, where we've gone from like the 70s to the 80s to the 90s to the 20s to the 2010s, whatever. However many years that is. But I was realizing then, thinking about history, like almost every culture has done that. I mean, we just saw an example of how China's doing this right now. They either force companies to edit games or they just outright ban them. Then the Nazis did this with talking about their own history, like building up this myth of the heroic, German peoples that they talked up all of these different historical figures and events. They reimagined people from ancient times.
And it's never people who are vested in the thing that they're banning. So whoever's banning all the shit in China in the government, they obviously do not play games. Whoever's, editing this history, they're obviously not a historian. Like, a historian would not do that.
Yeah, at least not a very good one. I mean,
I can never imagine a historian changing the past to suit the current needs. Because the whole thing about history is that it is what it is, and you're smarter for knowing it.
You do, ideally, yeah. But you do get people who will selectively describe bits of history. That's why it's, especially when you're looking back at, like, I guess...
I wouldn't call them historians, though.
There's an interesting phenomenon when you go back to ancient historians, specifically ones in the Greek and Roman period.
Are you going to say what they have to postulate?
No. They actually thought it was the duty of a historian to editorialize, to tell history in a way to make it more of a story. Yeah. And I think this shows up a lot in Herodotus, which is kind of one of the first historians that we have on record. He wrote most of what we know about Greek history comes from him.
Yeah. And he bent the truth. Well, he's not the historian looking back at the text, though. He's the person writing it, and whoever writes it can write whatever the fuck they want. It's the job of a historian to work out what's true and what's not.
Yeah, but that's a very modern perspective. Like, even in the medieval ages, people didn't think that way. They actually, the historian was a person who was telling a narrative, who was, telling events and tying them together and making them make sense, not somebody who was just writing down raw facts. That's a very modern concept.
I'd consider that more of a scribe.
I mean, I know what you mean, and I agree with you, but that's how, like, the perspective of what a historian did and thought has changed over the years.
Yeah, it's like the Biotapestry.
What's it?
The Battle of Hastings. God, I'm gonna get told off for this. The massive long tapestry that like can go several times around the average room.
Yep, I know what you're talking about. Yep.
And it's essentially the medieval equivalent of anime. Or manga, sorry. And it's just like picture after picture after picture in a single long strip. And it has the classically the king getting shot in the eye, or who they think the king is being shot in the eye. Or is it the eye or neck? I'm pretty sure it was the eye.
I don't remember. I haven't looked at it in a long time.
No, right, since GCSE history, so... but yeah, it's like... We don't know that any of that's real. That could be dramatized because it's a very nice picture that goes all the way along a corridor or whatever. But that's what we've got to look at. So let's believe it. Yeah.
Oh my god. Well, I mean, I think I've kind of exhausted that. But this is always the issue, and this is why you get... It's so easy for people to take a piece of history and make it match what their idea of the world is. So you see that with a lot of dramas set in historical eras,
Yeah.
and they talk and act in a very, very modern way. And if you actually like read anything from the time or look back at the way people talk and acted in these periods, it's so weird. Like, but history is so complicated and so nuanced that it's easy for a politician or somebody who is creating a piece of media, an author or screenwriter or whatever, to just, even with video games too, just to manipulate it to make it just fit their creative vision.
You've just got to look at any of the videos from, what was it, The Insider? There's a big trend on at the moment where they get a professional to review movies with their craft in, and like you never see anything that's ever accurate to what it's actually like in any of them.
I did see one the other day. It was a guy who was an expert in casino cheating, or like cheating in casinos, and he actually consulted as like a security expert for casinos. And he watched a bunch of movies that depict people cheating in games.
Ocean's 11 and stuff. Ocean's 11?
Yeah, Ocean's 11 is an example. Ocean's 13 in particular had that one. Had like the big cheating scene at the end. And that one, he was like, yeah, this is all bullshit. But then he watched some other movies like 21, where they're doing like the teams of card counting and stuff like that.
Yeah, card
counting,
like, absolutely.
He's like, that one is, he said it was kind of simplified, but it's extremely accurate. So
they're talking about card counting, which is a thing, but they just slightly change how they would have actually done it.
Well, they simplify it. So they did it exactly like a real card counter would have done it, like a real card counting team would have done it, but it's simplified so the audience can understand it. But yeah, usually when you watch those videos, I know the videos you're talking about, usually when you watch them, it'll be like, they'll look at like 10 examples, and of those 10, maybe like 1 to 2 of them are accurate, and the other 8 are like, that's bullshit.
Yeah, like, there's a lot of firearms ones, and I think I've sent you quite a few videos of the British Firearms Museum guy recently, who looks at video games and looks at like the way that guns reload, just the physical shape of the gun, the way that the bolts get ejected, and God, you don't notice these things when you're playing a game. It just looks like a gun to you. But he's like, nope, the ejection port is on the wrong side. This is a left-handed gun that has been mirrored to be on the right. That kind of stuff. Like CS:GO guns, they are all left-handed guns that have been mirrored. And I was like, who the fuck would know that? Because apparently the original guy that made CS:GO was left-handed, and then just to make it look natural for everyone, they flipped it. It's just weird little facts like that. I'm glad that there is an expert out there that recognises this shit, and is not letting those AAA games get away with it quite as much. But yeah, I consume it either way.
But I like that when you get like somebody who's like an expert in the field and breaking down pieces of media, because a lot of times you do get stuff that's simplified for audience. And actually, before we conclude, because we are way over on this segment, there's one last thing I wanted to say, and I can't remember what the actual name for this is, but it's the phenomenon where, so you're reading a newspaper or reading like some sort of an article or something, and you're an expert in something. Right, so say like I work in pharmaceuticals. So if I was reading something about like something that
StarCraft 2.
Oh yeah, okay, StarCraft 2, whatever. But it's something you're an expert in. You're reading about it, and it's clear that the author doesn't understand it, and it's clear that they're fudging the details or whatever to make their point. You read that and you're like, oh, that's bullshit, because you understand that field. But then you read something else by the same author or from the same paper or whatever, and it's about something that you aren't an expert in. You read through it and you're like, oh, that's interesting. Not just forgetting a moment before you had just read something in the same piece of media, we're like, that's bullshit. But just because you're not an expert in the new thing, you suddenly forget that this piece of media you're consuming has already made an ass of itself once. So there's a chance that this next thing that you've looked at is also
probably going to be bullshit as well,
Yeah, you never know. So it's always like, it's a good thing to keep in mind whenever you're, watching something, reading something, listening to something, like, just, always take... I try to take pretty much everything with a grain of salt these days.
Yeah, especially in news, honestly. Because news journalists, they are news journalists. That is all. They are not experts in anything else. They are news journalists.
Well, half the time, especially the big places, they just either look on Twitter or they look at what the Associated Press is writing about and then take that and put their own spin on it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think people do actual journalism anymore.
No.
Or at least,
hell, we are technically being journalistic right now. And
by the modern standard, yeah.
But we I guess the closest things we're experts to are games. And we in no way say that we know everything about games, because we know shit about it.
God, no.
But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Segment 2.
Yeah, got to get on to talking about that movie. I'm looking forward to this one. All right, this is going to be the end of segment 1 of the TMCJ podcast. Thank you all for listening, and you will hear us again momentarily for segment 2.
Yes.
Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We're on segment 2, our media segment. I can't. Oh my god. All right, so this week we had a movie night, and I love these kind of movies. That kind of they're out now for probably for a lot of the reasons I talked about earlier with the whole tropes thing. But we watched The Man Who Would Be King.
Yeah, it wouldn't be acceptable in this day and age. Oh no.
No.
Oh no.
Too many tangerines.
Honestly, some of the quotes that come from both of them are just so good.
Yeah. I mean, the movie, it's so... The quick synopsis, the movie's set in, like, kind of the... I guess the height of the colonial era, right? Where you've got British India, and I think that's where most of it takes place, actually. Or they're in, like, Burma or India or something.
That's where they fought, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they fought there. And then these two ex-British soldiers get it in their head that they're going to go off to this land past Afghanistan, somewhere in Central Asia, and they're going to take over a kingdom, or they'll ingratiate themselves to the local rulers by showing that they can, using their superior tactics and stuff and technology and drilling the soldiers, and use them to sort of conquer the local region and become kings in their own right, and then they'll rule and live a life of luxury as the kings and overlords of these places. And suffice to say, it goes somewhat to plan, but somewhat not. Doesn't exactly end well for them, which they kind of let you know at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, and generally I hate it when films do that, but there were so many unanswered questions that I think it kind of... I don't know. Yeah,
because you're given a starting point and an end point.
Yeah.
Like, the starting point, like, it happens in the kind of the end of the timeline, where this basic bookkeeper guy is in his office, writing some stuff up, and
the author of the book, the book, it's a bit meta.
Oh, is it actually I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah. The person who wrote the original story is the character in the book.
Got it. But yeah, so he's approached by a man in, like, kind of Arab garb, and he looks up and he's got a badly scarred face, and he recognizes this guy. It's a British dude. And at this point, you don't know who that is. Then cue the flashback to the beginning of the movie, of how he met this guy and his co-conspirator, and then it goes on from there.
Yeah, and they're all part of the Freemasons.
Oh, yeah.
Which, do you know much about the Freemasons?
I
know. We kind of explained it quite well in the film, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a guild, basically, or it's a relic of a guild.
Yeah, and there's, like, secret... this is a real thing that happened, and they have their own secret handshakes and things.
There are chapters in the U.S. You can join them.
Yeah.
Like, I know somebody... I knew somebody in college that... I don't think he was a member, but he had, like, either family members that were, or he knew people that were. But it's pretty simple. Like, you have to go through, like, some kind of a introduction. You have to be sponsored by somebody who's already a member. You have to take some kind of an oath, and basically just not allowed to talk about any of the stuff that they do or talk about at their and from. I mean, but the thing is, you can find it online. Like most people, the information of what goes on like at these things, it's basically
These days,
just like
yeah.
it's basically just like a club where it's for like networking and stuff like it's very similar to a lot of professional organizations from what I've heard.
It's essentially also the kind of the origins of the Illuminati kind of thing.
Yeah,
especially with the whole eye motif.
Yeah, they do have very similar things. Illuminati is one that I don't know much about. But that, again, also a real organization, but they've been tied up in all these conspiracy theories, like they're going to take over the world. And I did that in Alex Jones's voice.
If you talk about Illuminati, you got to do it in Alex Jones's voice.
Yeah. Like, Illuminati! Anyway. So they're Freemasons and stuff like that. But I think, are all three of them the author and the two men?
No, the author is just the
he's just a witness. But but I didn't know if he was a Mason as well.
In the film he is. I don't know if he is in
real life. But yeah, but in the film they're all is. Yeah, but again, that was kind of established because I think if they're all Freemasons, because they're all part of this professional organization, they know they can all trust each other. But
especially because he hands back the watch that he already stole from the guy. He looks at it, he's like, fuck, it's a Freemason, I gotta give it back.
Yeah. Oh god. And I love how the way he does that is he throws the dude that, again, speaking of tropes that could never happen, like a local gets onto the train with them. And
with a huge watermelon
that he's just eating on the train and spitting the seeds on the floor. And to be fair, the guy is pretty annoying too. He just never shuts up. And so the one guy, I can't remember, that wasn't Sean Connery, was it? That was
no.
Alfred. What the fuck is his name?
Oh god, you're drawing me a blank now.
Yeah.
We quote him all the time.
I know. He's the guy who played Alfred, the butler, in the Dark Knight movies. Yeah. The one who talks about the tangerine. That guy's... I've never seen him in a lot of his older roles, but I've seen him in so many roles now. Like Michael Caine, yeah. Absolutely love. First of all, the two main actors in this is Sean Connery and Michael Caine. Fucking phenomenal actors,
Grade A actors,
and they do such a good job in this movie.
And this is in their fucking early years.
Yeah. And fucking Sean Connery rocking that like explorer's handlebar mustache, the one that connects to the sideburns. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting way off track here.
Yep.
But they meet up with this guy and they reveal what their plan is. They want to go off here and become kings of some unknown place, and they have him witness them signing a contract. So he's their legal witness when they sign this thing. And the contract is...
so they say... Sorry.
Oh, no, go on. You describe it. You describe it. I've been talking for a while.
The contract was essentially between the two of them that until they had both become kings, they would not drink alcohol, they would not sleep with anyone, and they... What was the last? It was like they wouldn't stab each other in the back or something, basically.
Yeah, they vowed not to betray each other. They vowed, to be celibate, and they vowed, to be teetotal until they have achieved their goal. Which, I thought that was a really laudable point, because I think because of a lot of modern movies, I kept expecting them to stab each other in the back.
Well, that's the thing. They even at the beginning, while Sean Connery is reading out the list of things, and he reads out the last one, and it's like, we'll never abandon each other. And then the person goes, oh, we didn't need that last one, but we thought we'd put it in anyway because it sounded nice.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh,
good
that's
Sean
not
Connery
foreboding. Thank you.
Good Sean Connery voice. Yeah, but and especially because in the beginning of the movie, only Michael Caine comes back. And so you already know something happened to Sean Connery, whether he's still there and he betrayed Michael Caine, or whatever, you know that only Michael Caine made it back to where they are now. So, but I kept expecting that to happen, and spoiler alert, it really never does. They don't actually betray each other throughout the movie. There's a moment of like very like tension between them near the end of the movie, but even in those moments, they're still comrades. They still actually are.
Yeah, he doesn't want to imprison him or kill him. He just, you can go away now, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we're kind of
you can. Yeah, sorry.
Kind of jumping ahead, but so that happens, and then they set off on their journey. They get their supplies, and they go off journeying across. They're heading westward across what today would be Pakistan, through Afghanistan, north into these regions where they will go and become kings.
Yeah, to avoid being attacked, Sean Connery pretends to be like a wizened, crazy wizard.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Michael Caine is like his servant serf that translates.
Yep. They have all kinds of wacky adventures along their way. I fucking Sean Connery on the top of a sand dune, dancing around and waving and speaking in gibberish. That was pretty funny.
Then they cross like some Arctic mountains where Sean Connery's character goes snowblind.
Yep.
And the only way that they can... Well, he gets through by holding the tail of a donkey, which they stole from some muggers that came for them.
Yeah.
That was quite a fun scene.
More weird and wacky adventures, yep.
Yep. Until eventually they...
No, go on.
Until eventually they come out of the Arctic area, and they come across this stream where there are some women washing clothes, and the women get attacked by some masked bandits.
And then they intervene, and they take out the masked bandits, and they save the women, right? And
yeah, most of them.
Yeah. They're not. But that's something that is established throughout the movie. Is they're not good at this, really. They really are just two normal rank and file kind of soldiers who have just decided to do this.
Well, they certainly, from Michael Caine, you see a level of leadership.
Yeah, I think that, but they weren't like, really high-ranking soldiers. I think they may have been like, sergeants or like the head of like a platoon or something.
Get in the fray kind of troops.
Yeah.
And also I did notice they didn't actually fire until the bandits they were actually fucking attacking people, and that's when they started firing. I thought that was nice. They didn't just see masks and go, fire!
Yeah, they didn't. They actually had a... That's the other thing. Despite some of the more questionable things they do, both of them seem to be fairly good and honorable people. Like they had a very self-centered goal, but in achieving it, they don't do anything outright.
They did it by the books.
Yeah.
And also, it's kind of, I think the things that they did do bad are diminished by the fact that a lot of the locals have more barbaric traditions.
Yeah, the locals did bad things as well, and that was when they decided to be harsh in return.
Yeah, do you want to talk about the scene between the leader of that first city they come across and his many daughters and sons?
Oh, are you talking about... So, I think... Doesn't he... First of all, he offers his daughters up, right?
Yeah, to Michael Caine and Sean Connery.
Yeah, as a reward or something, and they turn him down, and then he says something like, oh, maybe you prefer some of my sons, or whatever.
Yeah.
And
Michael Caine goes fucking off the handle.
Yeah, because he's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like,
yeah, because it's not acceptable in these terms.
No.
Kind of thing.
Well, it's more the fact, and we talked about this in the movie, there is... And this is a controversial thing to say, but it's true. There is, especially with like tribes in that area, there is a history of, let's just say, grown men using young boys in a not good way.
And young women.
And young women, but it significantly more so than it was common in parts of Asia, Africa, and the West. In those Central Asian regions, it was more common for it to be done to young boys, and it's fucked up. But they didn't I think an honest portrayal of it in the movie.
I didn't linger on the point too much.
And they didn't linger on it. It was like one point, and then Michael Caine gets pissed off about it, and then they move on.
Although they did make a comparison to homosexuality being as bad as cutting a man's head off and using it as a polo ball.
They did.
So I mean, there's that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a product of its time.
Yeah. Cool.
But I think it was less the fact that it was homosexuality and more the fact that it was like
Giving away his sons and daughters.
Yeah. Giving away family like that, and then also they were quite young. The boys he was talking about. That's I think what my interpretation of it was more so what pissed him off than the fact that it was gay.
Yeah. Like the leader, as you continue to find out throughout the story, is a douche.
Oh god, yeah. Guy was a fucking jackass. And then so this leader, they've decided he's like their tribe is really on like the ass end of everything. Like they're constantly getting raided. Their daughters are being kidnapped, and their sons are sold into slavery and whatnot.
The ongoing joke that there's always a tribe above them pissing in their streams.
Yeah.
And every
I
tribe they come
remember that.
from.
When they're talking about what happens, and he's like, oh, they do this, and they're upriver, and they piss into the stream. So, like, yeah.
But when they're talking to those people who are pissing in the stream later, they're like, oh, there's these other people. They're pissing in the stream up from us.
So this is where it starts. Is they're like, okay, this is the perfect thing. So we'll drill these people and get them ready for battle, and then we'll take it to the next tribe. And they do. They take it to the next tribe.
10 to 1 on people.
Yep, and they win, and when they're talking to those tribesmen, first of all, the leader's getting ready to behead all the people, all the men of the tribe that they just took over, which again, if you go back in tribal warfare, that's a lot of the times what would happen. It was you would basically, and this happened pretty much everywhere tribal societies existed, so which is pretty much everywhere on Earth. When you defeated your enemy, you did one of two things. You either killed all of the men, or you enslaved them. And this happened everywhere on Earth. In fact, it was very, very weird when you ended up with societies like the Romans or like the Persians, who didn't do that. What they did was they were like, okay, you're part of us now. Or you're a slave. And so the whole like genocide, the rival tribe thing was a lot rarer. The Persians were really famous for this. One of the ways they got such a huge empire back in ancient Greek times was they would basically like, we took you over, you pay us taxes, and you call him God. All right, fuck off. You can do whatever you want. That was it. And half the time you didn't even have to pay that much tax.
And in Japan, you get like, rather than cutting the heads off became a thing of honor.
It did.
Like the seppuku became like, it's completely
If
different, but also the same.
Yeah, you end up with this highly ritualized way to. It was ironic because I never really thought about it that way, but yeah, when you're going back to feudal or ancient Japan, you end up the rival tribe that's defeated eliminates itself because it's honorable to do so rather than having them do it to you. It's very foreign to like kind of the modern mindset, but it's always fascinating looking back at this stuff. What, you look like you have something to say?
I was going to say the modern day seppuku has just been putting GG at the end of the game. It's the honourable thing to do, guys.
Oh my god. We've gotten so far off topic.
It's like, fuck you!
We've gotten so far off topic. Anyway, so they do beat this other tribe. They stop the leader from beheading everyone, and then he talks to this other tribe now that they've conquered and kind of integrated into their kingdom. And the other tribe, this is where they make the same joke. They're like, oh, we only raided you because there's this other tribe up the river, and they're always pissing downstream on us and stuff like that. And so you're realizing there's like a pecking order where they started with the bottom one, they conquered the one above them, and then there's somebody above them. Go on. What do you have to say?
I was going to say, we've got the blind priests.
Oh, right, because it was during the battle, like they all stop and
Both
go
sides.
down, both sides, because these blind priests go by like chanting, and did they have a bell or something?
Yes, the kid in front has a bell, I assume, so that the people behind him know where they're going.
Yeah,
And they hold on to each other, because these priests aren't allowed to open their eyes, because they're not allowed, because they don't want to see the badness that is happening in the world. So while they're out of their city, they just follow this kid. I don't see why the kid has to look at all the badness, but whatever. Yeah, and so there's like this line of priests just walk between the two lines of the armies, and everyone just sits down, lies down with their face in the dirt.
yeah,
Because they don't want to have God against them.
yeah. Essentially, and I think like Sean Connery and Michael Caine are like wicked confused. Like, why did everyone just stop?
Yeah.
But yeah, so they go on and they pursue this line of conquest. And I think this is where the movie kind of takes a twist, because during one of the battles, Sean Connery gets shot in the chest with an arrow.
It was that battle.
Yeah, it was that battle. He gets shot with an arrow, but it just basically like lodges in his shirt or something like that. Or
Yeah, he had a bandolier on, it just went into the leather of it.
yeah, and so it didn't actually pierce him. But everyone is like, oh my god, he's like, he was shot in the heart with an arrow, and he's perfectly fine. He lives.
Yeah, no bleeding.
Yeah, he's immortal. Or that was what they thought. They thought he was like some kind of a god king.
Yeah.
And so this
Instant surrender.
Yeah,
Sorry.
this starts to progress things even further now, because now Sean Connery is their god king, and he's kind of supplanted the other tribal leaders who they started out working for and with. So in a sense, their plan is working. But here's where the unbalance starts to happen. Michael Caine is just sort of a great general, whereas in the eyes of these tribesmen, but Sean Connery, now he's a god king. He's the immortal, and so he like holds an arrow with him as he's like passing judgment on like certain issues. People bring issues before him, and he does that. And Michael, and I think they're at this point they're given a bunch of wealth, right?
Yes. So every town they raid, they say to the men, split your wealth in half, and we will decide which side of it we want. And we get to keep as war spoils.
Yeah, and I think
it's pretty fair.
It is, yeah. Considering, like, in a lot of these situations, what would happen is they would just take everything and kill you.
Yeah.
So, by that standard, this was remarkably egalitarian of them.
They were British gentlemen. They didn't want the little kiddies to go hungry.
Oh my god. And then I think once he becomes a god king, don't the priests also give them stuff too?
So no, the priests, while the people are giving him things, also there's the woman at that same point. He's like, she's hot, but she's like, if this man touches me, I'm going to burst into flames and die.
Yeah, because she's afraid that,
She's afraid that he's an actual god. And then the priests just walk up, and everyone bows down and lies on the floor like normal. And the priests are like, you got to come with us. We don't give a shit what's happening. You come with us. But Sean Connery's like, nah, fuck you. I'm a god king now. I don't have to go anywhere. But Michael Caine is like, actually, hang on, dude. If you say fuck you to these people in front of all of our army that literally lies down in the dirt in front of these people, if you say no to them, our own army is going to hang us.
Yeah.
So they have to go, just the two of them, with the priests.
Yeah. And then I think this is when, because I remember they open up like a room, the priests do, and it's just like full of.
Has not yet.
When does this happen? I thought this has already happened.
So they get to the city, the religious city, the mecca of whatever the country's called.
Yeah.
And they're led through the streets and up to this church where they meet the high priest of the religion. And he's like, to prove that you're a god, I want you to stand over there and we're going to shoot an arrow point blank at you and see if you bleed.
Okay, I remember this. Yeah.
Pushes the archer out of the way at the last second and it goes wild. Michael Caine pushes him out of the way because Sean Connery's just being stupid and doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so all the priests like rush forward, grab the two of them. They rip open Sean Connery's shirt to make it more sexy, and he's got the necklace of the Freemasons on that the author gave them at the beginning of the story.
Okay. Yeah, I remember this now. Yep.
And the high priest is like, "Oh shit!" Walks over to a stone tablet, and it's got the same kind of engraving on it that only the high priest has seen since the time of Alexander the Great, who was the original person that came here, and he actually happened to be a Freemason. So they think now that this is Alexander the Great's son, essentially.
Yeah,
and they think
a
Alexander
descendant
the Great is
from
God.
him, yeah. Because Alexander the Great did have himself declared a god, essentially, in the Persian style.
And so they don't continue with the whole trying to shoot him thing. Instead, they're like, here's all of Alexander the Great stuff, and there's this room.
This is what I was thinking of, full of like gems and rubies and
Yeah.
gold and, crowns and all this just general wealth as far as they can see.
Then Sean Connery picks up this ruby and he's like, this is a ruby, BT. And Michael Caine's just like, picks up one that's like twice the size. He's like, this one's bigger, mate.
I love that. They have such like a perfect reaction. Because think about it. If you like, this is like if you and I, went back in time and tried to like conquer a civilization and were given all this wealth. That is exactly how I feel like we'd react. It's like just like, hey, I found a bigger one.
Wait, so hang on. Would you be Sean Connery or would you be Michael Caine? I think you'd be Sean Connery.
I think I'd probably be Sean Connery.
But yes, so he is loving his time as the God King of not just a group of mercenaries, essentially now. He is now pretty much the ruler of the entire country.
He's become a regional god.
Yeah, because he is essentially the Messiah.
Yeah.
And so he's doing his thing of being like the law of the land. So people are coming before him with all their troubles, like...
This is what I was thinking of earlier, where he's holding the golden arrow, and he's, like, making decisions from his seat.
Do you remember the whole cow argument?
Is this the one where they had to, like, cut the cow in half or something like that? Or
sort of. So, there's a place nearby, and the rule is, if your wife sleeps with another man, that man owes you... like 2 cows, I think.
Oh, right. Is this because the guy, Sean Connery makes the judgment that he's like pimping out his wife just to get cows?
Yeah, so this guy from the village is basically sending his wife out to all the other men in the village, and suddenly that one man owns all of the livestock in the entire village.
Yeah.
Like, so he's monopolized through his wife's sexual proclivities, and he's like, that's fucked up, essentially.
Yeah, no, he sees right through it and realizes the guy's pimping his wife out to get cows, and he makes some judgment that like the guy needs to give back, like he needs to pay cows to all the
each
people.
of the wives of the village.
Yeah, for pimping his wife out to them.
And he says something at the end. He's like, she'll need to sleep with at least 15 more men to pay it off again, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like. It's to break even, that was it.
Yeah, to break even. Such a good... like, some of his judgments were hilarious.
Yeah.
Because, again, you very clearly see, like, he saw through, like, what the, what the deception was, but at the same time, his decisions, his rulings were just absolutely hilarious, because you could tell this isn't like a lawyer, this isn't somebody who is a deep philosopher, he's just a guy who is just a random dude.
He turned to Michael Caine to get like, Sean Connery's not a maths person in this.
No.
He's like, so that means each wife gets how much is it? Oh, that's 3 2/4 cows each to each of the ladies. I was like, right, make it so. So I guess they just cut all the cows in half or something.
Yeah.
God.
No, that whole sequence was hilarious.
Yeah.
But then, this is where the movie starts. This is where I thought there was going to be a big betrayal coming. Because all this starts to go to Sean Connery's head.
In this very scene, in fact.
Yeah. And so Michael Caine is starting to get like annoyed, and he's like they have a kind of a heated discussion in private where it's like, Michael Caine's like, listen, we can't keep doing this forever. I need to like at least give me, we've achieved what we wanted to achieve. Give me my half of everything, and take your half of everything, and let's get out of here. Like we could live like kings back in England, with this kind of cash.
Literally, the amount of money that they had there, they could be kings of the whole fucking world.
Yeah, they had like tons and tons of cash, and so they could have gone back and been like, probably could have bought themselves a lordship or something like that. I don't know how that stuff works, but
these days you can, but I don't know about those days.
Yeah, well, I mean, I imagine you grease the right palms, get in the right circles, maybe get a knighthood. Anyway, so they go off, but Sean Connery he's too into this lifestyle, and he's like, no, I intend to take myself a wife, and this is just an excuse for us to do Sean Connery accents.
It's a great accent, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. Also, rest in peace, Sean Connery. He died recently, didn't he?
I don't know.
Hold on, I'm gonna look this up because I'll be really happy if I find out he's still alive, but I think
I've literally got him on this page. Yeah, he died on 2020, October.
Tragedy. The world became a darker place on that day.
I think Michael Caine's still kicking around though.
Yeah, he's still acting. Like I still see him.
88 years old. Jesus.
God. But yeah. Anyway, so Sean Connery is, he's intending to take a wife, and this is where things start to go off the rails. But he agreed. And again, you think there's going to be a betrayal here, but it doesn't happen. After a heated debate, finally Sean Connery's like, all right, like I want to stay here. I believe this is going to all go well for me. I'm going to take a wife.
My destiny.
Yeah, this is my destiny, exactly. And Michael Caine, he can't talk sense into him. Yeah, it's like this isn't going to work. But eventually they agree to disagree, and Sean Connery lets Michael Caine take some wealth, and
half the profit. He doesn't even check it, so he's like, he might as well have taken all of it.
Yeah,
he wouldn't have cared.
And then Michael Caine gives up on trying to convince him to leave, and they agree to go their separate ways. But then
the priests,
because he decided to take a wife, this was where I think it tipped him off, because a god can't sleep with mortal women. Or which is weird because the Greeks thought the exact opposite. And look at Greek mythology. Zeus was banging everything under the sun.
I mean, yeah, there's the whole thing that Alexander the Great had a wife with the same name.
Did he actually?
Yes, like the same name in the story. Like they were saying, it's like, she's even got the same name. It's perfect.
You're right.
I can't remember the exact reason why he couldn't, but the priests did not want. Oh, it's because after he'd announced that he wanted a wife, there were like cursed signs. Like they found a dead bird with green pus, and Michael Caine was like, that's just they split the spleen or something. But obviously to them it's like the gods are angry.
Bird signs, yeah. But I mean, signs in nature, again, going back, like even the Romans like put a heavy emphasis on signs from nature, bird signs and whatnot.
I mean, Holy Roman Empire. Clue's kind of in the name of the holiness.
Yeah, I mean, you saw stuff like that, even into the medieval period. The Holy Roman Empire, you're talking about like 1,000 years there. The Holy Roman Empire took place pretty much from when Charlemagne reunited it all the way down until it was reunified into Germany. The Holy Roman Empire went into the 1800s. Anyway, doesn't matter. So, bad signs all around. And I can't remember exactly how this scene goes, because it doesn't end well for Sean Connery. Spoiler alert.
The woman appearing.
Yeah, well, in particular, how does he get to the bridge? I'm trying to remember like how these events fit together.
The bridge was one of the tasks he gave Michael Caine to give him something to do in the 2 weeks before the pass opens up and Michael Caine could go home. So they make this bridge across the chasm, and then coming the day of the wedding, she is she's arrived, and she crosses the bridge, and being treated like royalty with like these lady servants, all around her, and they
basically like bridesmaids.
Yeah, they stay in like a small chamber for the night before the wedding.
Yes, I remember. It was that they lead her to it, and I remember thinking, oh god, something bad's going to happen, because she looked like really morose and sad. Like, she looked miserable going into that thing.
Yeah, well, they thought she was going to explode into fire when they touched...
Yeah, exactly. They thought that, the divine power could not... I mean, to be fair, I feel like there's probably a lot of women that feel that way about Sean Connery. Probably a lot of men, too.
What?
They can't stand the never mind. It's a bad joke. Go on.
Anyway, so it's the next day, and Michael Caine has decided he'll stick around for the wedding to send his friend off on Sean Connery's request. So she's coming up the aisle, as it were. She looks stoned as fuck. Another one of the bridesmaids who were with her in the stone cell thing overnight, like, just collapsed on the floor. Some kind of, I'm assuming, drugs were involved.
Yeah,
some
some
bit
kind
of
of
a wild hen
hallucinogen.
party.
Knowing that region of the world, it was probably hemp.
Yeah.
Which, marijuana, for those that don't know.
And so she was scared shitless. She could barely stand up. And she gets up onto the next to Sean Connery, and in her, like, delirium, she bites him, leading to the greatest phrase in the film, where Sean Connery turns to Michael Caine and said, "She bit me! The slut bit me!"
But now he's
all
bled.
The priests can see, yes, that he is bleeding, and he is but a mortal man, and the gods have cast him down.
And so they must cast him down.
Yep.
And so what they do... Yep, so they lead him out onto that bridge that Michael Caine had constructed. And
they chase him out of the city.
Yeah, and walk him out onto the middle of the thing, and then they slice the ropes that are holding it up, and he drops into the chasm. As Michael
Undoing
Caine...
his work and his life while all in one. And then what happens to Michael Caine is pretty fucked up.
You want to go?
Yeah, sure. So we don't actually see this part happening. Once the body falls into the pit, cuts to black. And we go back to Michael Caine in the present,
talking to the witness, yeah.
Yeah, talking to the newspaper journalist. And he's like, oh, so basically Michael Caine was then taken by the priests, crucified, and after a day where he was still alive, they let him go, as they saw it as a kind of miracle that he was still alive.
Yeah.
So after being crucified, he then went and got his old friend Sean Connery's head from the bottom of the cliff, and then made the journey back to the civilized land.
Yeah, back to the British Raj.
Yeah, on his own.
And
yeah.
That's the whole story. It's kind of a grim ending, like with only one of them living, but the movie itself going through...
ending.
Oh, God, yeah. What final words? The slut bit me!
Like, up to this point, he loves this woman.
Yeah.
And he's, like, giving up almost his godhood for her. The slut bit me!
Yeah. I mean, this is a movie that's... It very much captures the kind of giddy up and go optimism that kind of encompassed and really epitomized European civilization before the First World War. Because there's a lot of people who have kind of looked back at the 1900s in general and found that it was a century that deeply traumatized Europe as a society, like European societies in general, all of them, like the French, British, German, all of them were kind of like really traumatized by everything that happened during that century. And so this movie kind of captures the attitude that they had before that, the age of exploration, where they're going out and finding all these exotic lands, and this clash of cultures where they're sorry,
kind of to do with it, and also kind of not to do. What does casus belli mean?
Casus belli. That's it. It's Latin. I don't know. I've heard that before too.
And the reason is, I've been playing Civilization.
Mm-hmm.
An act or situation that provokes or justifies a war. Okay, because there's like 20 ways that you can go to war in Civilization, and it never applies to me. None of them. So I always have to just straight up declare. So it's all like, religious war is my reason for going to war, or protectorate war.
Yeah. The
anyway,
Romans
sorry, that's
were,
just what it reminded me of.
The Romans were just always a huge fan of defensive wars. Everything had to be couched in the idea of defense. Julius Caesar famously, when he was conquering Gaul, had to invent a bunch of reasons and propaganda why he was taking over Gaul. And one of the reasons the Roman Senate wanted to bring him up on charges was they thought it was an illegal war. It wasn't a defensive war, which was the only kind the Romans preferred to pursue.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, no, just a bit. It's a movie about like two 19th century explorers or soldiers who just. It's basically like a buddy comedy in a lot of ways. Like, you get these two guys that just they have a wild and wacky dream, and they go out and try to do it, and they have antics and adventures along the way, and it doesn't end too well for them. But
it's quite like the I'll say Only Fools and Horses, but that's not the one I mean. Del Boy kind of. Actually, do you have that over there? Do you know what Del Boy is?
Nope.
Okay, right. Very, very famous British television program from before my time, where it's kind of a guy that he's always every week he's got a new way of making it big, and this is what this feels like an episode where. Because they tried like thievery, they've obviously tried gun smuggling comes up.
Yeah,
they've tried all these different things, and this is the one. This is the one, Pinky.
Yeah,
we're going to be taking over the world today.
Try to take over the world. Yeah, there's very much that, and it does have kind of a bad ending. Bad ending in terms of bad for the characters.
Yeah, they don't end up well from it.
But
that's what happens when you go all chips in.
Yeah, but the journey along the way, and it's the lesson there is they should have listened to Michael Caine and walked away when they had the chance. Because if they'd stolen away in the night with all that gold, they could be living like kings in England, or anywhere else in the empire at that point. But they stayed in just a little too long, and
or if he just hadn't wanted to get a wife.
It's true. Yeah.
Because no one else is going to fucking bite him.
Yeah. That's true, yeah. He could have just pulled a Zeus and had some concubines. But that
was a real fucking ticking time bomb, though, because the moment one of them got sick...
Oh, yeah.
He was fucked.
Michael Caine had the right of it. Sean Connery let it go to his head, but, yeah. Great movie. And it was fun just watching the journey. And, again, it doesn't kind of pander to a lot of modern sensibilities, but... I almost think it's better for it. It's just...
It's refreshing.
There's a remarkable degree of honesty to it. Which I feel like a lot of tropes nowadays are about subversion and deception. And
you can't do that. You can't be that.
Yeah, there's a lot of can't and a lot of don't in modern media. Yeah. And this was a lot of can and a lot of just wild adventure. Yeah, just like fuck it, let's do it. And I love that. It was a great movie, and I think I actually bought that movie right after we watched it, because that's something that I want in my collection. It was just fun to watch.
Yeah.
If only to watch Sean Connery act like a god.
Honestly.
Oh my god.
The greatest actors. All
right. So I think
hang on. So what time? What day is it now? It's the 11th. Okay. So. We've got your one, not coming up this week, but next week. I actually told Alicia what you planned on doing. But I guess we'll keep it quiet for everyone else? Or have you already told them? I can't remember.
No, I don't think so. We did, okay. I mean, I think we've talked about the concept before, but not specifically the movie. Anyway. All right. we're way over on both segments. We still got a lot to talk about because segment 3 we're trying out a brand new little game that we're going to be doing. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, this is going to be the end of segment 2 of the TMCJ podcast. Thank you all for listening, and you'll hear us again momentarily for segment 3. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We're on segment 3, our wildcard segment, and we've got a brand new segment here. Blue had an idea to do some sort of a debate sort of format between the two of us. But the twist being, because a lot of things we do agree on, we do have differing beliefs, which is half the fun of the podcast, because we're going to come to different conclusions a lot of the time. But it's kind of with a devil's advocate kind of twist. So you were going to say something?
I was going to say, around the time when we first met, in fact, it might have been a year or two afterwards, actually, or several years. When there was the elections going on, I remember we used to have debates every night, and they could get pretty heated. But over time, we've kind of just come to learn each other's opinions, and it's become a lot less debatey, which we're kind of trying to rekindle some competitive wording. Conversation.
A little bit of a clashing of the wits, but that's and I think that's a format I do really enjoy listening to, like on other podcasts and things. I like to hear two people, especially when it's two people who aren't just shouting at each other, because I feel like a lot of discussion and debate now ends up just being people throwing just ad hominem attacks at each other.
Well, that's the thing. That did used to happen, but those days we both had a bottle next to us that we would just go through during the argument, and it would
that's eventually
we're not doing that.
No. Well, yeah. I do have a drink here, but it's green tea.
Yeah, it looks like whiskey, but it's green tea.
Yeah, I'm drinking iced green tea out of a whiskey tumbler. It does look exactly like whiskey. Anyway, but so the basic format of this, we've jotted down a few ideas, and we're each going to pick a side on these binary ideas. Now, not all of these either of us hold a binary opinion on, but we're going to try to make an argument for the other side, even if we don't agree. If we don't agree with the side we're arguing for, we're going to make our actual beliefs clear ahead of time. And then, we'll make a quick argument, the other person will make a quick counter argument, and then we'll kind of discuss each other's points for a brief time after that and then move on.
Yeah.
This is all still theoretical. We haven't tried this yet, so I feel like this will be, a fun way to experiment with it. But without further ado, do you want to bring us in for the first topic? Because this is one that you had presented.
Yes, well, thank you to my gorgeous girlfriend. That was her idea. The first topic we're going to discuss is when does kind of rioting, or, that's the extreme, or complaining about something online, when does that go too far? When is your message no longer coming across in a peaceful way in some times, or whether people are going to stop tuning into it because you're taking on too much action, too much extreme action.
When have you become the villain?
So where is the line that you draw where you're getting a message across, but you are not becoming a public nuisance? My opinion on this, my IRL opinion, is that I think people certainly in the last year have gone far too far. Especially, I can understand why people have been stuck in their homes, they've not been allowed to go out, but people have been taking things too far, and it's led to a lot more, I'm going to generalize it and say, a lot more pain in the world than has been necessary for a cause that, while it's an important cause, it's been going about the wrong way, and so I think it's detracted from the overall message. That being said, for the sake of this debate, I will be on the side of the people who think that those who believe that there is no line too far in the justice of getting your message across.
Yeah, so you're going for like the kind of the pro-revolutionary kind of standpoint.
Yes,
Almost.
so the revolutionist. That will be my title for this debate.
And I think so. I'll be doing the counter argument to that, which I don't. My own personal opinions are somewhere in the middle on this one. I don't really. I think protest and the ability to speak out and the ability to like, kind of, call attention to when there are societal ills that need to be addressed. A person's ability in a free society to be able to do that is very important. But it has to be within reason. I don't. I think there's definitely a line, and where you start to cause serious damage or harm to others, that's where you've crossed the line. Now, how we define harm to others has obviously gotten a lot bigger these days. But in either case, I'll be arguing for the hard line in the other direction, that this sort of protest and things like that, it needs to be more harshly regulated, which is something I don't necessarily agree with. But here we go. Do you want to make the first case?
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to start it off a bit soft. People who make their point online. They go in chat forums. They go petitions. I think honestly, petitions I think don't do as much as people think they should. So you can have a petition online these days and get like 100,000 people to sign it, and then it gets sent to, in England, it gets, when you have enough signatures on it, it has to be talked about in the House of Commons.
It's the House of Commons. Yeah, I actually know about this law.
And but I don't think, like, at the end of the day, the people who are sitting in the House of Commons are nothing like the people sitting at their computers writing up this petition. I don't think it gets heard enough. Like, if you have a genuinely really good point, and you make a petition about it, and a bunch of people just sign it because it seems like the right thing to do. Like, I've known people that just, they're told that this is a good thing, alright, I'll sign it, you can have my name on it. It's not enough. If you're going to do something, don't just sit there. Like, these people that do like walkouts, they go to a particular site and then they say, right, we're going to do a mass log out, like the Blizzard thing. And they're like, oh, we're all going to log out at the same time, it's going to make a big impact. It doesn't make a fucking difference. You've still logged in. So people are not doing enough when they actually need something that's like significant, when they actually want to make a change. I ain't going to do shit. So people do need to make a bigger emphasis when they're making these points.
Yeah, so I get what you're saying with that. This is kind of a frustration with modern, kind of the way modern discussions are had. You end up with people just completely divorced from what a lot of normal people say, and then you've got things online like petitions like that seem to get tons and tons and tons of signatures, but it doesn't seem to actually go anywhere. So there's a lot of frustration with that. So the counterpoint to this, the logical conclusion of what you're saying is that in order to get your point across, there has to be like more and more extreme action. The problem with going down that route is the amount of human misery it generates along the way. So, you realize it's like, okay, this petition, it got heard by Parliament in your case. They talked about it for a while and then did jack shit. So, the question is, what do you do next? So there's protests and things like that. I'll use a perfect example from the UK that happened recently. The Extinction Rebellion people, they're like hardcore environmentalist people. They're sitting in the middle of the road blocking highways. And people died because of it. There was an ambulance that got caught up in one of the highways, and a woman ended up paralyzed because she was having a stroke and they couldn't get her to the hospital because these jackasses were sitting in the middle of the street. So while I agree that there's a frustration when you have people not able to... They feel like they're not having their voices heard. They feel like their protests and their signatures and their whatever, the traditional avenues aren't getting across to the people who are actually in power and able to make these sorts of changes. Moving beyond that and actually causing physical harm to other people, I feel like hurts more than it helps. Because what you're doing, the people in power in parliament, whatever, they still don't give a shit. That wasn't their mom in the ambulance. They could get them in a helicopter because they got the cash for it. You're just alienating the common people, the normal, everyday schlub who is now not going to support you at all because, you paralyzed his mom, or you prevented him from getting to work and he got fired or something like that. So I think that more extreme action isn't always necessarily the best next step. It can actually work detrimentally and be worse than doing nothing.
Well, if you're not going to so if you're going to make something of it, then yeah, you're going to make a big crowd in a city centre where you're going to be heard, where you're going to be seen, where you can make the news. Because that's how you get the word out, and so that everyone knows what it is that's happening. In the case of, what was it, the Extinction something.
Rebellion.
They're all about saving the Earth, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, someone died because an ambulance couldn't get to them. That is tragic, but at the end of the day, the topic they're discussing is about saving not just people, but, the whole world. It's not just people, it's the ecosystem, it's animals. It's I'm not going to go as far as Peter, because I think Peter go a bit far off the rails, but it's not just about a single person. If it calls attention to the event, yeah, it's tragic that someone died, but
see,
in the grand scheme of things, it was an unfortunate accident, and accidents happen. This
is something that really, really pisses me off, and that has been used to justify all kinds of atrocities throughout history. It's we're doing this for the greater good. We're doing this for the betterment of all mankind. We're doing this to save the planet. It's a way to justify. If you use that kind of universal justification, you can justify anything. It's how the Soviets justified the show trials. It's how the Bolsheviks justified murdering the royal family in Russia. It's how the Nazis justified getting rid of huge swaths of the quote-unquote undesirable portions of their population. When you have a universal good in mind like that, or you're saving the planet, you're saving the people, you're boosting up the proletariat, you're taking down the bourgeoisie, you can justify any sort of atrocity. So that's why I think it is important to keep those hard regulations in place, limits on how far you can go. Because if you have a noble philosophy, you feel like you can do anything.
But then you have, all those examples you listed were kind of government-sanctioned. The Nazis, they were the government. They had control of the army.
Yeah. But
if the people had rebelled at that time, if there had been a massive uprising, it wouldn't have gone nearly as far as it would have. It would have still been an atrocity that would have killed so many people. But if they had stopped it early, if in the beer hall putsch, someone had just fucking glassed Hitler... So, but if action had been taken then by the people, then it wouldn't have become that atrocious government that then did all these horrible things. And the same with the camel trials in Russia, and so it's the people getting dicked over.
Not necessarily, because in Russia, they were the revolution. The people who, took
Stalin.
over... Yeah, they were the revolutionaries. Hey,
well, Lenin was the closest thing to a revolutionary at that time.
Stalin was part of them too. So the history of the Bolshevik Revolution, Stalin actually was sent to Siberia for political crimes because he was one of these Bolsheviks after Lenin was expelled. But Stalin, because the Siberian areas were so poorly guarded, Stalin just got back on a train and went right back to Moscow or St. Petersburg or wherever it was to join with the revolutionaries again and organize. And people forget about this, but most of Russia actually supported the Tsarist family, and it was only when it was only the urbanized European centers where the Bolsheviks really had power, and they leveraged that power to take over the country. They were
saying Lenin and Stalin were best buddies.
They were at first.
They fucking weren't. Lenin didn't want to be seen in a photo with Stalin. Stalin had
Later.
to Photoshop himself into a picture
Much
with
later.
Lenin.
Much later. In the early stages, you should have heard some of the things that Lenin said about him. He praised him. He called him his little something or whatever. It was some little pet name.
Before he became the guy that had the concentration camps and became essentially possibly the biggest mass murderer, when he had control of all of these courts and could send people off to the gulag, equivalent of gulags.
I think Mao and Genghis Khan still beat Stalin, but Stalin's pretty close.
Yeah, probably.
There's so just a little aside here. There's a fun quote that I
Fun
like.
quotes with genocide.
Yeah. No, but it puts it into perspective. There are two kinds of people that killed more people than Hitler: communists and Mongols.
And I mean, yeah, I don't know. And they all come from the same place.
It is Asia, but yeah.
But yeah, like us going out onto the streets and complaining in front of a government building, we're not like shooting the guards or beating up the people inside. We're just making our voices heard, and the news picks up on it, and suddenly everyone in the world. That's why, like in America, you had the whole Black Lives Matter thing with George Floyd, and over in England, we picked up and were like, yeah, it's not okay, so we're going to complain about it too.
Yeah, but again, this is one of those things where it's. This is one of the reasons I think the restrictions are so important, is because when you start to have these universal ideas that travel around the world and don't apply everywhere. Like, they're talking about, like, the whole police brutality thing. That is an issue in some parts of the U.S. It really isn't in England. Like, it isn't a problem over there. And so you end up with these people who just want to be revolutionaries. They want to be part of some kind of global movement in the UK, and they start talking about Black Lives Matter in the UK, and it's like, what? Like, it's a purely Americanized thing, and they're trying to take this rubber stamp and place it on a completely different culture, completely different country. But
what makes it Americanized? Like, we still have boots in England. We can still crush a man's throat. When we got him pulled over on a traffic stop, it wasn't even a gun he used. He just literally held it on him for, what was it, 20 minutes?
9 minutes.
Was it 9 minutes? I could have sworn it was more than that.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, it's enough to kill a man.
It is when he's got severe respiratory issues, but yeah. But yeah, but I don't want to get bogged down in that, because the reason I'm bringing up these, or I'm countering these specific points, is I'm going to bring it right back to the original point. Having these limitations, having restrictions on how far a protest can go, and having these official avenues that you can pursue to, again, make people understand that there's an issue with a system, is that once you have these universal ideas that protest things like they're saving all black people, they're saving the planet, they're helping the poor, like these general concepts that don't apply to anything in reality. And when I say anything in reality, I mean a specific individual, like a specific. You can't go like Jeff, George, and Ringo over here. They're actually having some problems, and so we need to do this to help them. They're going like this general nebulous concept of the poor. Once you have like this universal concept, this nebulous cause that is going to be bigger than yourself and bigger than everyone else, it justifies anything.
Are you happy with that as your closing statement?
Yeah, I'll have that be my closing statement.
All right, I'll keep mine short. You have to make these things global, because, like, we live in the most, probably aside from maybe like parts of Europe, we're probably the most progressed countries in the world. And so it's our duty, really, to be the forerunners and be like, okay, this is absolutely not okay. Like, yeah, they get away with it in other countries. Tell you what, if you want to get away with it, fuck off to that other country, because this is the civilized world. We do not want you here, right? So, yeah, we absolutely have to be the strictest of the strict to set a good example for everyone else. And if that means we have to, stand out on the streets in front of government buildings in the rain, shouting about our message, then that's what we got to do to lead the good in the world.
Okay. All right. That's it was interesting how that went. We kind of like left the format get a little looser near the end. I do want to say at the end, just like you made arguments that I hate very well.
Oh, I was so God. It came arguments against what I was talking about came to me a lot easier.
But I guess that's kind of the fun
do.
thing about this format. We're trying kind of forced to make arguments for stuff that we don't necessarily agree with. One thing I'll clarify that I don't believe that I was making a case for there is occasionally, and people knew this back in like the 60s and 70s, you know, the whole civil disobedience thing, people peacefully breaking the law to make a point. But the thing is, there were still consequences to that. They still went to jail. They still had to, you know, maybe lost their jobs or stuff like that. You got to realize when you've like this is where I think that there's justification for those sorts of more extreme actions, but you have to do it in a way that doesn't harm your own cause, doesn't turn people against you, and understand that bad things are going to happen to you as a result. You are still violating the law. You know, so I don't know.
Yeah, we went into a long history spiel for a while, so I tried to bring it back to
yeah, I know, and we started getting tied up into specific movements. That's why I tried to tie it back to, like...
I think it was worth it for glassing Hitler in the bill, but
that image is hilarious. I'm just picturing, like, somebody, hey, get off the stage! But that's actually what happened, though. He failed in the beer hall putsch. They marched in the street.
That was like the very start of his...
Yeah, and he ended up in jail. He wrote Mein Kampf in jail. Germany was a weird case where the revolution, or the revolutionary movement, the more extreme movement, the socialists took over by getting elected. And
they got a popular vote by blaming things on other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is essentially what politicians do these days.
Specifically,
less extreme.
The communists, the finance people, and Das Juden. Oh, sorry, Die Juden.
Die Jungen? The children?
No, Die Juden. God damn it. Anyway.
Yes, we have very little time for the second topic now, but let's just give a quick thing and we'll jump right into it.
Yeah, we've probably got enough time to give it a full rundown. So the next one is the classic nature versus nurture debate. The idea that, you know, is a human being born as I can't remember the philosopher, but they refer to it as a tabula rasa, a blank slate, and that they're entirely a product of their upbringing and their environment and the other influences around them, or are people, is who they are biological? Is it something that comes about because of their genes, because of their parents and their ancestry? And I think there are very few people out there, and the people who do think this out there are absolute fucking morons. There are very few people that think purely on one side or the other. So the way I'm structuring this is one of us will be arguing that one is by far and away the stronger influence. And I think we discussed, you're going to be making the argument that nurture, the environment you grow up in, is the stronger influence.
Yep.
And I'll be making the argument that nature, your genes and your biology, is the stronger influence on who you are as a person as you grow up.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, we're not going to go super extreme. We're not going to say, like, if someone is born in a certain, is born and, like, acts in a particular way, it can completely change their race. Like, that's not what we're doing here. We're trying to keep it to a sensible level, but just either end of the spectrum. And
again, to clarify, just like before, my personal opinion is that it's a pretty even split. I personally think that they're around equal in terms of how they influence you, your environment and your biology.
I'm slightly more leaning towards the nurture category, to be honest. But, I mean, if we want to talk about homosexuality, that could be a good place to start, Kaiser, if you want to kick off with that.
Oh, yeah, I can do that. Well, I mean, this is actually one that's been decently well researched. What they've found is that there's a significant, like, in utero effect in terms of whether or not you are somewhere on the whole. I guess I wanted to call. I was going to say on the spectrum, but that's a different thing.
It's a spectrum.
Yeah, but basically, you'll end up with in utero exposure to large amounts of either testosterone or estrogen in the womb can actually have a pretty strong effect on determining whether or not somebody is going to be, gay or straight later in life. So that's the nature argument for that, is that it's based on in utero exposure to hormones, and then that kind of develops. You kind of are developed into either being gay, lesbian, straight, whatever. That's the nature argument. There's really not much more to say to it than that.
Well, I haven't seen the case studies myself. I'm not one for that side of it, but at least in my experience, I think the surroundings that you grew up in greatly determines whether which side you fall on. Make it sound like it's this thing or that, but let's say you're growing up in England 50 years ago. The odds that you identify as straight far higher, because people are not okay with you being gay. And I get what you're gonna say. You're gonna say, "Oh, but even if they don't say they're gay, they can still be gay."
They're hiding the gay inside.
Yep, they're in the closets. Just gonna pull them out.
Trapped in the closet.
But honestly, if you're so afraid that you can't of believing in a certain thing, you're naturally not going to want to go down that path anyway. I think people would try harder to be straight in this case. So it depends where you draw the line of whether someone is straight because they're being forced to be straight, or straight because they like women if you're a guy, or vice versa.
I'll use England as a perfect example of why I think there's a stronger case for the nature side of things in this case. And I do want to move away from sexuality, because I think there's more things to discuss on this topic than that. But in England in the 1900s, it was illegal, and you could actually be forcefully sterilized if you were found to be gay under the law. So I think there's a very compelling argument that even if you were gay, you wouldn't say anything about it, because essentially you're gonna get fucked up on pills and have you the person who made the Enigma machine, that's the guy I'm thinking of. Yep.
Yeah, I think we've both seen the film that's about it, but
Turing,
he solved the code that was going between the German U-boats and the High Command, so that the British forces and American forces would know where the Germans' naval positions were, and it helped win the war. Unfortunately, the guy that made that was gay, and he would go to he had a romance with another man, and that man sold him out, and he was chemically castrated.
Yep.
They didn't kill him, which was honestly a positive, considering at that time people probably would have killed gay people.
Depends on the region of the world, but yeah.
He essentially saved thousands of lives. They still chemically castrated him. So yeah, that is as good a story as any, to be like, this is why you should not be gay. And further, I mean, it's your experience with people that really determine whether you like them, in my opinion.
So your argument in that case, though, is that, so I'm arguing that people would be biologically determined to be either gay or straight, and the fact that laws like that existed would convince them to hide it. You're arguing sort of that laws like that are the reason that people would be gay or straight, because the laws are essentially culturally influencing them. Again, nurture, their environment is influencing them towards...
is making them be straight.
Okay. I see your point. It's basically, where is the starting point? Because if this is what makes this particular debate very difficult. And let's move away from sexuality for a second, because one of the other points, and this is another very controversial one, intelligence, whether it's biologically determined or not. And you want to open this one up with the environmental nurture argument?
So I am not going to deny that if you have a disability, it's not going to affect your.
Let's I should set that as baseline. Barring any sort of genetic issue or biological issue that if you're autistic, you have Down syndrome, you have some other ability that makes, or some disability that makes it so you're not having the same cognitive ability as the average person.
And yet, even then, you do get doctors and professors, famous people out there. I mean, what's his name? I think he died recently. You know who I'm trying to talk about? He was on. I'm not trying not to be offensive because.
Are you talking about Stephen Hawking?
Stephen Hawking. He had. What was it? He had some kind of mental disability, I believe.
I mean, the dude was in a wheelchair and he talked through a speak and spell. Like, it was.
Yeah, but that's just a physical thing. I think there was a mental thing he had as well. That. I mean, there's plenty of people out there, is my point, that even with these setbacks, are still far smarter than the average person.
I think Elon Musk is somewhere on the spectrum too. I might be wrong about that, but I think he's like either mildly autistic or he has some condition like that. So, but again, barring people like that, so if we're just talking about like the average man or woman,
I think that they're a good show of, if you put in the hard work, you're going to be more intelligent. But I think the smartest people out there in the world today are the ones who have the greatest drive to commit to learning something, who don't, get home at the end of the day and just eat food and sleep. They progress themselves. So I think the drive to get up and do something is a big part of the way that a person ends up being. Because, I mean, even if if someone has like a hobby, they like mechanics and they like tennis.
Mm-hmm.
If a person's drive sends them down the tennis route, they're not going to be able to be a mechanic, just flat out.
So, counterpoint to this, because all of those things that you described could be attributed to nature as well. The drive is there; it's what allows these talents to manifest. But the nature argument is that biologically, all of that raw talent, the full breadth of your potential is already predetermined by your biology. So, for instance, use an example from my personal life, like pretty much everyone in my family is good at math. Literally, like I have uncles who are engineers. I have two math teachers that are an aunt and an uncle, one at the college level, one at the high school level. Both my cousins great at math. I'm an engineer. Like, my dad, he basically went to college for sports, and then when he decided later in life I needed a better degree, he took like advanced math courses, and he went right through them. He did great at them, and that was like when he was in his 30s. Or maybe it was 40s. I think he was in his 40s at that point. But my point being, there's obviously a genetic predisposition towards a certain like academic field that runs throughout my family. And
I don't think so, because. Oh, sorry, I thought you finished your point.
No. And my point is that's an anecdotal example, but I think you see these trends in wider society, like in terms of how intelligence manifests. Like if you look at the broad, use men and women as an example, in terms of intelligence. If you look at the actual curve of like the average IQ, and IQ is a flawed measurement, but it's at least a standardized one. If you look at men and women, there are much more geniuses and morons among men, like very low IQ and very high IQ, whereas women all seem to concentrate towards the middle. There's much more, but that's a biological difference you can point to. I know that's controversial these days, saying that there's a biological difference between men and women, but it manifests in terms of how their intelligence stacks out.
Okay, I got 2 points, major points to counter there.
Mm-hmm.
First off, I feel like the men in society these days are driven to be, like, they still are, despite what people may say, they're driven to be the breadwinners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they are either going to succeed or flop. Like, if they can make someone proud, if they can pass it all, then yeah, they're gonna try their fucking hardest and they're gonna get, like, go for the gold, or they're gonna fail horribly. With women, there's not as much pressure, I wouldn't say. I mean, certainly among some people who think that women should be higher than men, they have a lot of drive. I'm stepping on eggshells here.
You're stepping on the eggshells very gently, and I'm going to stomp them in a minute. So,
but you still see, like, you know, the British equivalent of Donald Trump, Saran and Sugar. His second in command, essentially, is a lady who also owns a football team. Like, she's clearly got fuck tons of drive.
yeah.
And she's just like, no, I'm gonna make a statement. I'm going to be the best. Whether she does it because she's a woman or because she's just grown up wanting to be the best, I think that's its own thing. Second thing, regarding your family being all good at maths, take my family, for example. We're generally very good with computers. Probably the reason that I put it down to is that when we were growing up, we had a computer because our dad used a computer. When we used the computer, he showed an interest in us using the computer because he understood what we were doing. If I started, I don't know, campaigning for free rights activism, as far as I'm aware, my dad hasn't done any like campaigning or anything like that. But he wouldn't know what I was doing, and he probably wouldn't pay really any interest. Like, don't get me wrong, people can still do that, and people do that when they want to branch out, or if they have very differing opinions from their family. But you have a very cohesive family, as do I, and so I think naturally as a child you want to make your parents happy, you want to talk to them, you want there to be some interaction between the whole family, and so people are shoehorned down a particular way. It's like the whole that was a quote from Civilization that I can't remember now, but it was about, like, you know, the father wants the son to continue in their tradition and be better than what they are, because that's what they know how to do, so they will teach their son how to do that. Go on.
There's actually a really good quote that's similar to that one.
I mean, that wasn't the quote. That was
no. But it's similar in premise, and it's I'm paraphrasing, but the quote is something like, "Society is doomed when men stop planting trees, the shade of which they will never sit under," or something like that. The idea being that a healthy society is one where, you know, you plant a tree knowing that it will never be full grown in your lifetime, but your, you know, children and grandchildren will be able to enjoy it. And tree is a metaphor, but, like, just that you're taking care of society for the next generation. But I'm going to come back here and just completely argue that everything you just said was nurture is actually nature. And I'm going to point to our closest, genetic relatives, apes, right? Think of how you're making the argument that it's social pressure that, and to an extent, it probably is social pressure that pushes men into, like, these highly competitive, competent, like, kind of roles to be the breadwinners and stuff like that. But I'd argue that even that social pressure is a biological element. If you look at the way, apes and chimps and things structure their family groups, that is exactly how they behave. That social interaction is part of their nature. The fact that, like, you've got the men taking care of the family group, being the protectors and being the gatherers, and you've got the females of the ape group, taking care of the social aspect of things. And I feel like the way humans behave, that's a manifestation of that. And even what you're talking about there with, like, the children seeing their their parents, what they're doing and learning from them, I'd argue that that is biologically hardwired into, the human brain, is that the children are biologically programmed to see what their parents are doing and see that as favorable, to take an interest in that, to study it. What were you going to say?
By that logic, and I'm bursting to use this.
I know, I could see you. You're squirming in your seat as I was saying that.
Oh, I'll shut up, I will shut up, and I will listen. By that logic, you could say, okay, the first cell that ever entered the planet had to evolve in this way to become this, and everything was all part of a grand plan, and everyone had to act in this exact same way for the whole of the universe. I'm sorry, but just saying that, like, that's nature because it's humanity, and humanity came from this and this and this and this. That's just like saying, yeah, okay, everything, society, government, taxes, all came from the fact that we are human. I can't deny that, because that's just, nature is the entire universe.
That's right, I just used biology to prove the existence of fate. Mic drop.
Exactly. Like, everything that happens in the universe is... You alright?
That's a cell phone.
Like,
sorry.
Okay, it sounds like a small cow vibrating.
Yeah, I know,
desk.
it's a very loud phone.
So...
you guys couldn't see that on camera, but I just threw the phone across the room.
Yeeted it. Okay, so... I understood we were talking about this on like a direct family-to-family basis, and so, okay, I'll take it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
You're born, and tragically, your entire family has died. You become orphaned, you get adopted by a new family, completely different blood relative. You are going to probably do the same exact thing that I was saying just then, where, like, the father or the mother are very invested in something. You're probably going to follow that line of thinking. It is not in your blood, because the first people were farmers, and the second people you came to were computer technicians. You're probably not going to go with the whole farmyard thing, because you're going to be brought up and nurtured around computers.
You ready for this? I got something in my back pocket for this.
Fucking come at me, bro.
Twins. There are plenty of cases of twins that are separated at birth. They're brought up not with their biological family, and you'll end up like, there was like one I remember reading about where, like, both dudes, they grew up completely across the country, completely different states. They both ended up being firefighters. And they still looked identical. They had very similar personalities. They actually married women with the exact same name. They both had the same number of kids. And
are there more than one example of that?
There are multiple examples of this. That was the most extreme example I've seen, but there's multiple examples of twins growing up separate and having either similar personalities, they go into similar jobs. I mean, obviously they look the same, they're fucking twins.
This sounds a lot like Brave New World, Kaiser. Are you sure this isn't where you're getting your sources?
I'll break character for a moment to state and remind people that I am trying to argue for the pure nature argument here. I don't necessarily believe everything I'm saying, but I'm using all my powers of argument to make the case.
I think that there's always going to be examples where, oh my god, two people split up and they both banged blonde chicks. But, sorry, that was a very crass way of putting it, but this is kind of what I get. Like, okay, yes, there's a coincidence, they're both firefighters. But, okay, if one of them had gone to, like, I don't know, let's say a very well-off family, and the other kid had gone to, like, someone in the slums in Africa, they're not going to be firefighters.
They wouldn't be, but I'd argue that what you then do to try and prove this theory, and I don't have an example of this, but if I were going to try and, design a study to prove this, I would find an example like that, and then look at, what opportunities they have, and did they pursue similar interests. So maybe they, these two families, one's well off, one's very poorly off. Did the one who was very poorly off maybe join the military, and the one who's very well off go into, I don't know,
a different government job?
Yeah, politics or something, like some other civil service, like that's associated with more well-off people. So did they pursue similar interest even though they're in very different nurture circumstances? And I don't have any evidence to say what that would look like.
We don't actually have any statistics on any of this, so we can't give that.
Yeah, and I meant to. We should probably wrap up soon, but
Yeah.
One thing I should have mentioned on camera or on recording that I didn't earlier was there's an old adage in debate, that which has been presented without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. We've kind of thrown that out for the sake of this, because we're just, in this segment, trying to make the intellectual argument for these 2 points, not necessarily trying to pull specific real-world examples. We touched a few real-world examples, but we didn't go like, this person on this date that this happened, because that's not really what this is about. It's an intellectual exercise.
And my closing statements will be a personal thing that happened in the real world.
Okay, let's hear the anecdote.
No, I was just going to say, like, obviously anyone who's been listening to the channel for any length of time knows that I'm not straight. When I was going through, like, up till the end of basically school, when I started going into college, so that was what I was like,
the gaying.
14 to 16, I can't remember.
Yeah.
All the way up till then, I had absolutely zero interest in men. When I went to college, and it was an entirely different kind of scene from the places I'd been previously. Previously, it had been very proper and prim, and you kind of keep your opinions to yourself. Went to this college, very open people, very, 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 some would say too open. And it was like, and I was in the art block there.
One of the things that was open was the legs.
Yeah.
Sorry.
My point was, like, I'd been in an old boys place, which can be pretty fucking merciless for, like,
of course,
4 years. And then I'd gone into this college, this art corridor, and there were, women sitting on each other's laps and, like, joking around and talking about stuff that you would never fucking talk about in that sort. And over, like, the months, I started becoming like, okay, I'm hearing other people talk about these things, I'm thinking about them a lot more, and now I think maybe I actually have a different opinion based on the area around it. Like, I don't think I would have, if I'd stayed at the grammar school, the old boys' school, sorry, I don't think I would have come to that conclusion, or at least definitely not that soon.
Okay, I can see that, and like, so, I'll my closing point will again be an anecdote, but again an anecdote that argues towards the nature side of things.
Yeah.
My dad, very athletic man. He basically, moved. His college days were spent like sports, basketball, hockey, softball. Like, I remember, like, some of my earliest memories were like going to see my dad play hockey. Like, he was in like a minor league thing that he did around the area where he grew up. And me growing up, I had very little interest in sports. Which, sorry, Dad. But like,
are you about to say you're a child of the milkman?
but let me get to the point. Very little interest in most traditional sports. I loved video games and stuff like that, so I definitely had like a competitive streak to me. Yeah. And I'd watch sports on TV with him, but it was more just as a kid I would just like spending time with my dad. And we played like street hockey and stuff like that. He taught me to play basketball and baseball and stuff like that. Took me to softball t-ball games. Did all this stuff. Didn't really catch for me. Then I hit puberty. Right, and I hit like late high school, early college days, and I started doing like track and field and cross country. I realized I'm actually pretty good at this stuff. And then when I got to college, I was like, you know what? I actually I really enjoy watching football. I really enjoy our football, not your football. I actually enjoy watching hockey and these other. And it was something that I had taken no interest in my entire life, despite his active efforts to, enjoy this thing with me, to like watch sports together and play sports together and stuff like that, didn't stick. But then just naturally, as a course of my life, I realized, wow, I actually do really like this stuff. And I think that's a point for the biology. Again, anecdote, but. And, you look like you have something to say.
No.
Okay. So one thing I wanted to do quickly, so out of character, we're not debating for these sides anymore. I'm going to make a quick description of my actual philosophy on this.
Go for it.
I do think that there's an element of both. Your description there of your anecdote there, I think that's something that a lot of people experience when it comes to sexuality. Like, it's very rare that you have somebody who is purely gay or purely straight.
Yeah.
A lot of people are capable of moving along that sort of spectrum of sexuality, and it's only, but it's up to them to kind of determine where exactly they fall and what's going to be right for them. And nurture has a big part of that, but I believe it starts with nature, and then how it manifests is, going through the nurture side of things. And the same thing with intelligence. I think that people are born with the capacity for certain talents and things, but it's their life that allows those things to actually manifest. Do they have the drive, like you were talking about, to achieve something? That's my personal philosophy, despite everything I just argued for.
Yeah. Well, the first thing we talked about, guys, is that I was very against the things that I was saying, in my opinion. But
yeah, that's
whatever.
true. But I mean, I feel like that's... Sorry, just one last thing.
Okay.
I feel like this exercise is something more people should do, because it's very enlightening to argue for something that you completely disagree with.
And hear it coming from your own mouth, yeah.
Yeah, like, can you make the argument for your opponent? Because if you can't, then maybe you haven't done enough research and don't really understand your opponent.
Yeah. And just to
your
what
final
you just
thoughts.
did. Yeah, I fully accept there are integral parts of the human condition that are brought about through DNA. I think a lot of them can be changed over the course of time, especially with, some of the weird fucking studies we're coming up with these days. Some of them only superficially you can change yourself, but God knows where we're going to be in 50 years' time. Yeah, I don't know. And I'm sorry I also made it very about homosexuality.
It's fine. It's one of
it's
the...
something that I kind of... That's where I hear about it most, obviously.
But it's a prime... I think we touched on two things, and that was, sexuality and intelligence. Those were the two things we focused on. Other ways we could have gone would be physical ability, but I think when we're talking about physical ability, that's something that's much more clearly biological, because I'm never going to be 6 feet tall.
Oh, I thought you meant like whether someone could grow muscles or not.
Well, grow muscle, yeah, but they're like even your ability to grow muscle. So this is another anecdotal example. I like... Yeah. I saw what you just said there.
I just saw it. I was like, what?
I said at the beginning of this podcast it was going to be a long one. We're at 2 hours and 17 minutes. But I think we had a lot to talk about today. It's not like we've just been waffling on.
Oh yeah, it's been packed.
The topics were something that we both really wanted to talk about. The movie was awesome. We didn't even finish
the topics.
We didn't even finish this. There was a third topic we didn't get to.
Yeah.
And then this debate segment ended up being a lot of fun, because I think both of us like arguing. Not
debating.
Yeah.
I'm going to argue with you about this. It's debating, guys. I'm not arguing, you plebeian.
I am using the classic definition of arguing, which is you're making an argument. Blue's fiddling with his mustache.
I thought I had like the fucking...
I actually can do that. Look at this. Alright, sorry.
See that smile? It looks like it's part of it.
Alright, we've completely gone off the rails. But let us know what you thought of this segment. We obviously had a lot of fun with it.
Yep.
And I think that I encourage people to try and do this, even if you're not doing it with another person, but try in your own time, in your own mind, try to make your opponent's argument. And I think that that's something that's very important. Even if you completely disagree, understanding why somebody is making the argument for what they're making the argument for is very valuable.
And also, if you are going to then have a debate with someone about it, then you've already reflected on what the things are that they could bring up, and so you will be better prepared in making your own argument if you know where they're coming from.
And you won't be flustered if somebody comes out and goes like, "Ha ha, this!" And you're like,
"Ha ha, the gay card!" I know it well.
You won't be tempted to devolve into kind of attacks on the person, and you can actually interrogate what they're saying rather than what they're thinking, or than who they are.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. We are so far over, but I had so much fun recording this week's podcast. This was awesome. But yeah, let us know what you think. God. All right. Yeah. This is going to be the end of episode 63 of the TMCJ podcast. Thank you all for listening, and you will hear us again next week.
China?